Do you really believe that those who have power got there by luck? This is the best-told lie of the century. The truth is simple, but no one says it. Power is a game. And most are losing because they don't even know they're playing. While you work hard, follow rules, and expect recognition, others manipulate, lead, accumulate wealth and influence because they have learned the real rules of the game. And the most absurd? These rules are visible, repetitive, and can be used by anyone who looks beyond the surface. If you continue to believe what they told you, you will continue to be at peace. But if you stay until the end, you will understand how to become a player. And when you learn to play, the power switches sides. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have everything in their hands while others struggle their entire lives without moving? Why do some individuals, even with less talent or knowledge, reach positions of influence, power, and respect, while so many others, full of good intentions, remain invisible? The answer is not luck. Never was. We live in a society that romanticizes effort and demonizes strategy. They say you just need to work hard, keep your head down, and be a good person, and everything will work out. But reality proves otherwise every day. The world does not reward the hardest working. Rewards the smartest, the most conscious. One who understands the hidden rules behind the game being played silently. And here's the big twist. You can learn this game. Robert Greene, best-selling author of The 48 Laws of Power, did not write manipulation manuals. He revealed the codes that were always at play. What he did was open wide the board where kings, CEOs, politicians, and great leaders move with precision. And that's precisely why his books are so controversial. Because they say things that no one has the courage to admit. They remind us that power is not given. It is taken. And most of the time, it is taken by those who know exactly how to act, how to position themselves, and, most importantly, how to think. You may find this harsh, even unfair. But here's an uncomfortable truth. While you refuse to learn the rules, someone is using them against you. The game doesn't stop because you refuse to play. He continues, all the time. At work, in relationships, in politics, in the economy. And if you don't know how to identify the board, you are just another piece moved by the hands of those who understand the invisible laws that govern human behavior. It's not about becoming cold, Machiavellian, or manipulative. It's about opening your eyes, to stop being naive, to take the lead in your life and finally understand why the world is the way it is, and how you can stop being just another spectator. The goal of this video is simple but powerful. Show that power is a trainable skill, that you can learn, step by step, how the behind the scenes of the social, professional, and personal game work. And more than that, there is a way to play with conscience, with emotional intelligence, and even with integrity, without being devoured by those who have mastered this game for a long time. The question now is, are you ready to stop being manipulated and start playing? To understand power as a game, it is first necessary to undo a series of cultural illusions. The first of them is the idea that power is a gift, something innate, reserved for charismatic, cold, or extremely extroverted people. This is a myth. And neuroscience, combined with behavioral psychology, gives us concrete evidence that power is the result of mental patterns, social skills, and strategies that anyone can develop with training and awareness. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, author of The Concept of Emotional Intelligence, shows that the true difference between people who lead and those who follow is the ability to recognize emotions, manage behaviors, and influence contexts. And here's the bottom line. Power is not strength. Power is influence. It's the ability to move people, decisions, and environments in the direction you want, without necessarily raising your voice. This requires perception, presence, self-mastery. The science of neuroplasticity teaches us that our brain is constantly adapting. What does this mean in practice? That you can literally reconfigure the way you think, position yourself, communicate, and act in the world. Powerful people weren't born ready. They trained themselves. They cultivated mental strategies that allowed them to access higher levels of autonomy, clarity, and influence. Robert Greene studied the great figures of history, from Machiavelli to Napoleon, from Renaissance queens to modern tycoons, and found repetitive patterns, strategies, behaviors, ways of thinking and moving in the world that have always been present among those who have achieved lasting power. And we're not just talking about great world leaders. We are talking about anyone who has learned to position themselves strategically within a social structure. One of the most fascinating discoveries is that these strategies are not complex. They seem simple, even obvious, once you know them. But most people never even realize they exist. Why? Because we were conditioned from an early age not to see the game, obeying visible rules, while real, invisible laws govern what really happens behind the scenes. Have you ever noticed how certain people manage to turn the tide even when they are at a disadvantage? How do they have almost perfect timing, say, the right thing, at the right time, to the right person? That's not luck. It's reading the environment, social intelligence, and most importantly, it's awareness that there is a board being set up at all times. This is where change begins. When you understand that it's not enough to be good, you need to be strategic. That it's not enough to be right. You need to know when to speak. That it's not enough to work hard. You have to become someone impossible to ignore. Power begins where ingenuity ends. And when you understand this, you begin to see the world with different eyes. With gamer's eyes. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to predict the movements of the environment, anticipate other people's decisions, and always stay one step ahead? They are not psychics. They only know the invisible rules that govern human behavior. And the most disturbing thing is that these rules are not written anywhere, but they control everything. Robert Greene describes this masterfully. In any social group, there is a silent tension between appearance and reality. Most people live by appearance. They try to appear fair, honest, hardworking, respectable. Meanwhile, those who really understand the game live by reality. They know that what matters is not what is said, but what is felt. It is not what is done, but what is perceived. One of the most powerful laws of power is that of control of perception. Whoever controls perception controls the narrative. And whoever controls the narrative gains space, attention, and authority. This doesn't mean lying. It means understanding that people don't react to who you are, but to what you convey. What you communicate, consciously or unconsciously. The power game also requires strategic patience. Greene emphasizes that real players don't move on impulse. They watch. They calculate. They wait for the right moment. And this is perhaps one of the biggest mistakes made by those who are still learning. Acting with anxiety, responding in the heat of emotion, wanting to prove something to the world all the time. Those who have power do not need to prove it. He knows that strength lies in the conscious choice of when to act and when not to act. Another essential rule: don't be predictable. The human brain accommodates itself in the face of patterns, but activates in the face of surprise. Predictability weakens your presence. Unpredictability, when used intelligently, keeps you in control. This is why charismatic leaders alternate between sweetness and firmness, silence and speech, presence and absence. They dominate the contrast. They know how to be remembered even in silence. And speaking of contrast, there is another hidden rule. Whoever needs it too much loses the game. In power chess, what attracts is not lack. It is perceived value. People who demonstrate self-sufficiency, clarity of purpose, and self-control emit a magnetic signal. The world respects those who respect themselves. And that respect starts with the way you position yourself, even when no one is looking. These rules are not manipulative tricks. These are principles of social and emotional intelligence applied strategically. And when you start to see these dynamics in your daily life, in the workplace, in personal relationships, on social networks, you start to really play. What was previously invisible becomes clear, and what was once chaos becomes a map. Power is not in dominating others. It's about dominating yourself in front of others, and that is the biggest secret of true players. One of the most dangerous beliefs you can carry is the idea that, if I am a good person, the world will reward me. This thought, although it seems noble, is an emotional trap. Not because being good is wrong, but because associating kindness with a guarantee of success is a distortion that generates frustration, impotence, and resentment. See, the power game is not a morality game. It is a game of perception, positioning, and awareness. And many well-intentioned people fail because they believe the world is inherently fair, when in fact, the world responds to what you design, the impact you make, and the clarity you have about your choices. This does not mean abandoning your values. It means learning to play smart. History is full of incredible, talented, generous people who have been forgotten. Not because they lacked merit, but because they lacked strategic vision. On the other hand, how many apparently less prepared individuals have gained influence, attention, and leadership? They played better. The question is, what do these people know that you don't already know? They understood that living with awareness is much more effective than living with expectation. That it's not enough to do the right thing. You have to understand as to do, when do, and with whom to do. They learned that the world does not move by the logic of automatic reward, but rather by the dynamics of perceived value. And perceived value is built. Good people often sabotage themselves for fear of appearing manipulative, arrogant, or bad if they decide to play strategically. But here's the liberating truth. Strategy is not coldness. Strategy is lucidity. It's knowing that to maintain your values, you first need to occupy your space. And to occupy your space, you need to understand the rules of the game. Robert Greene is emphatic. True power begins with self-awareness, with the ability to observe your own emotions, intentions, and patterns. You can only move freely in the game when you stop reacting automatically and start choosing your moves clearly. This transforms you from piece to player. And the most beautiful thing about all this is that you can continue to be a good person. Only now, a conscious, strategic, and respected good person. Don't submissive, not forgotten, not crushed, because the world needs good people with power, people capable of influencing with wisdom, of leading ethically, of growing without stepping on anyone, but who no longer accept losing through naivety. You don't need to stop being who you are. You just need to stop hiding behind the idea that being good is enough. Being good is the starting point. Learning to play is what will take you to the next level. If there is a pattern that repeats itself among people who dominate the game of power, it is that they do not wait for permission to exist. They take up space. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't apologize for standing out. They don't dim their light to fit in with other people's mediocrity. They have learned that to play at a high level, you need to become someone who moves with inner authority, even before achieving any outer position. These people are not the most aggressive, nor the loudest. They are, in fact, the most focused, the most quietly confident. They have a presence that speaks before the voice. And this presence comes from a place that does not depend on applause or validation. It comes from self-control, from deep knowledge about who they are, what they want, and how they work. Robert Greene shows us that the archetypal power player is, first and foremost, someone who has developed a strategic state of mind. He observes more than he talks. It interprets subtle signals, reads between the lines, detects hidden games. He doesn't react, he responds. And when he responds, he does so not out of ego, but out of intention. This archetype may seem distant at first glance, but the truth is that it already exists within you. The question is, why aren't you accessing this place yet? The answer often lies in layers of conditioning. From an early age, we are taught to please, to seek approval, to avoid conflict. We were shaped to obey, to expect recognition, to follow pre-established paths. But no one taught us to recognize our own worth. No one trained us to develop mental sovereignty, emotional clarity, strength of presence. But all of this can be learned. The human brain has an incredible ability to adapt. It creates new neural connections as you practice new patterns of thinking and behavior. In other words, by changing the way you think about yourself, you literally activates a new way of being in you. This new mode is the strategist archetype, the one who no longer plays in survival mode, but in influence mode. And this state begins with a decision: to stop living by reaction and start living by intention. To get out of autopilot and take responsibility for every movement, every word, every presence. People who win the game are not perfect. They are conscious. They know their weaknesses, but they don't wallow in them. They know their strengths, but they do not boast. And above all, they recognize that the biggest battlefield is not external. It's the internal one. What you think about yourself, what you believe you deserve, how much you authorize yourself to take your place. All of this defines the way the world sees you and responds to you. Activating this archetype is not about becoming someone else. It's about eliminating the blocks that keep you from being who you really are, with courage, clarity, and personal power. By now, maybe you're starting to realize, don't play the power game as playing too, but in the most dangerous way possible, because those who don't play consciously play like pieces. And ask, my friend, you have no will of your own. She is moved by hands that she cannot see. It is positioned, used, discarded. The price of naivety is high, too high. It manifests itself in years of unrecognized effort, in promotions that go to others, in unbalanced relationships, in a constant cycle of frustration, where you feel like you're doing everything right, but nothing changes. This is the invisible cost of not understanding the game, living on the sidelines of the decisions that shape your life. And the cruelest? Most people who suffer from this believe that the problem lies with them, that they lack merit, luck, charisma, when in fact just lacked strategic awareness. Robert Greene says, if you are not aware of the forces that govern your life, you will be governed by them. And this applies to all areas. Not understanding how the game works means you always enter it as an extra. The world pushes you, shapes you, silences you, and little by little, you fade away. You start to believe that you need to be content with little, that this is your place, that power is for others. But that's a lie. The truth is that power has a price, but his absence costs much more. There is a comfortable illusion in remaining in the role of the victim. It gives a feeling of purity, justice, moral superiority. But this position doesn't give you results. It just makes you excuses. And excuses don't change lives. You can choose not to play, but the world will keep moving. Decisions will continue to be made. Opportunities will continue to be competed for. And whether you like it or not, someone will take your place at the table if you are not at it. The good news? The game is tough, yes, but it can be played with integrity, with lucidity, with conscience, and above all, with strategy. The price of freedom isn't in fighting the game. It's in learning to play it intelligently, so you can finally stop being controlled and start creating. And once you understand that power is not something to be feared, but something to be understood and channeled, you begin to act differently, talking differently, thinking differently, and the world responds. There is a moment when everything changes. It's not when you make the most money. It's not when you receive a title or praise. That's when you stop waiting for the world to recognize you and start recognizing yourself. This is the exact turning point. The moment you decide, silently and powerfully, I will no longer be a pawn, I will play. When this happens, new energy emerges within you. It's not arrogance. It's not rebellion. It's clarity. A clarity that scares you because you begin to see what you had never seen before. The subtle manipulations, the hidden structures, power dynamics that previously went unnoticed. You stop accepting the obvious and start questioning the invisible. And do you know what happens when you enter this state of consciousness? You change your language, change your posture, change the way you enter a room. You stop trying to please and start positioning yourself. You no longer need to shout to be heard. Your presence speaks for you. This change is not theoretical, it's visceral. It's an internal realignment so profound that the world outside begins to react differently. Because he feels it. And the world feels, yes, when you reconnect with your own power. It is at this moment that you begin to experience something rare, effortless respect. Not because you impose it, but because you emanate. You convey value. You stop being just another and become a reference. And the most interesting thing? Often, people around you can't even explain what has changed in you. But they feel. You understand. And they adjust. Robert Greene teaches us that the greatest power players are not those who do the most. They are the ones who do it right. Who do not wear themselves out trying to prove their competence, but act with surgical precision. They understood that the game is not about winning every conflict, but about knowing which battles are worth it. When you own the game, you stop wasting energy trying to fix what's outside and start transforming what's inside. You become your own center of gravity, and that changes everything. You start to choose better, talk less, observe more, not out of fear, but out of strategy. You learn to step back without feeling weak, waiting without feeling passive, acting without needing to be seen. Because now, you no longer live to please the world. You live to move intelligently within it. This is the beginning of your true freedom. Not the freedom to do what you want, but the freedom to understand why you do what you do, and where it will take you. All real change begins within the mind. The external game of relationships, decisions, opportunities is just a reflection of your internal state. And if you want to dominate the power game, you need to start from within. Because the real battlefield is not the market, the boss, politics, or the competition. It's your mind. As long as you still carry limiting beliefs like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, this isn't for me, good people don't need to play, you will be sabotaging every opportunity that comes your way. And even worse, you won't even see these opportunities when they arise, because your brain will be programmed to keep you in survival mode. The mode where power seems dangerous, selfish, or unattainable. But here's the fact. Your brain is plastic. It changes. He learns. He rebuilds himself. Neuroscience shows us that what you repeat, you install. In other words, if you start feeding your mind with new images, new languages, and new meanings about power, success, and your identity, your brain will literally create new circuits to support this new version of you. This process is called mental reprogramming. And it's not mysticism. It's science applied to personal transformation. You don't change your life by forcing the external. You change your internal until your external has no option but to align. And this reprogramming requires three things. Clarity of identity. You need to know who you are deciding to be. No longer define yourself by past wounds, previous defeats, or the opinions of others, but for a clear vision of your most powerful, most strategic, most conscious self. Belief. Review. Identify which ideas bring you down and replace them with convictions that lift you up. Not with ready-made phrases, but with new references, new experiences, and small daily victories that validate this new look at yourself. Emotional consistency. People who play at a high level don't fluctuate emotionally all the time. They train stability. Not because they don't feel it, but because they have learned not to be hostage to what they feel. They choose the response, not the reaction. Robert Greene talks about power with strategic coldness, but there is a deeper layer. Real power is silent. It's internal. It starts when you take control over your own thoughts, emotions, and narratives. And the more you master your mind, the clearer the game becomes. What once seemed like chaos becomes reading. What once seemed like confusion becomes a map, and what was once self-sabotage becomes direction. You don't need to fight the world. You just need to stop fighting yourself. And when this inner peace sets in, power begins to emerge, not as domination, but as unshakable presence. You already understand the game. You have seen that the world is not moved just by effort, but by perception, positioning, and consciousness. Now it's time to get out of theory and into practice. Because it's not enough to know that the game exists. You need to start playing. But where to start? How to apply all of this without falling into the trap of manipulation, arrogance, or artificiality? The answer lies in subtle strategy and daily repositioning. The power game starts in the details, in the way you enter a meeting, respond to criticism, or even in the silence you choose to maintain. Here they are 5 practical moves that you can apply immediately to start playing consciously. Become an observer. Before an actor. Most people enter environments wanting to talk, show themselves, participate. The strategic player does the opposite. He observes. He reads the weather, notices silent games, identifies who influences who. Before acting, he understands the terrain. Start today. Enter any environment with the attitude of someone who is studying the game and not begging for space. That alone completely changes your presence. Pace your responses. Responding too quickly reveals anxiety. Talking too much reveals insecurity. Power players don't rush. They listen more. They speak with pause. They create impact through rhythm. Practice strategic silence. Wait 3 seconds before answering an important question. This simple habit conveys self-control. And the world respects those who are not hostages to their own haste. Learn to say no, elegantly. Power lies in the ability to say no without guilt and without long justifications. It doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you know your limits, your focus, and your worth. Practice this in small situations. Reject invitations that don't make sense. Set clear limits. The world tests those who do not take a stand. Take care of your energy image. Yes, your energy speaks. Your posture, tone of voice, physical presence. It's not about branded clothing. It's about how you occupy the space. Do you transmit security, or do you ask for approval with your eyes? Straighten your spine. Breathe slower. Walk with intention. This creates an impression of silent power, one that commands respect even before words. Position yourself clearly. Even if it's uncomfortable, conscientious players don't please all the time. They communicate firmly, even if it causes discomfort. And most importantly, they don't over-explain themselves. When you position yourself with conviction, the environment reorganizes itself. People adjust their behavior to yours, not the other way around. These moves seem simple, but they are profoundly powerful. And, applied consistently, they reprogram your presence, your identity, and the results you attract. Remember, you don't need to change who you are. You just need to remove the conditioning that limits who you can be. Playing the power game is, in essence, returning to your center. And from there, act with conscience, firmness, and purpose. We have reached the end point of this journey. But actually, this isn't an end. It's a beginning. The beginning of your strategic awareness. The beginning of a new way of existing in the world. More lucid, more positioned, more powerful. You understood that power is not the privilege of a few. He is not born with anyone. He is trainable, cultivable, accessible. You don't have to be cold to be respected, nor manipulative to be influential. You just need to be aware. Why the greatest power that exists is the presence of someone who knows who they are. Robert Greene revealed the laws of power, not so that you dominate others, but so that you are no longer dominated. So you can look at the world clearly, notice the movements, anticipate the games, and make choices aligned with who you decide to be. Yes, the world has hidden rules, but now you see them. And whoever sees, chooses. Whoever chooses, leads. And whoever leads, transforms. The key to everything is in self-responsibility. Nothing changes while you are still waiting for external recognition, for automatic justice, for someone to come and save you. But everything changes when you decide. I will take over the game. I'm going to stop reacting. I'm going to start influencing. Not out of ego, but out of vision. What's more, you will play with integrity, because there is a brutal difference between manipulating and influencing. Manipulating is using others for your benefit. Influencing is using your consciousness to move the system from your presence. The real player doesn't need to step on anyone. He grows because he learned to occupy space with elegance, firmness, and awareness. He need not be feared. He is respected. And that respect starts within. It is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. You now have the tools. You now have the vision. The next step is yours alone. But remember, whoever doesn't play is played. And playing with awareness is an act of self-love. It's deciding that you deserve more than crumbs, more than empty applause, more than being a spectator of your own life. From today onwards, when you enter a room, you enter differently. When you speak, you will be heard differently. When you think, it will be from another perspective. Because now you're not waiting anymore. You are playing, and the game finally changed sides.